Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So today our topic is software quality assurance measurement. Before we go to today's topic, let's first have a quick review of the lecture from last class. Okay. In the last class, we talk about software security. Specifically, we talk about what is the software security and how to analyze software security using static analysis and also using dynamic testing, such as penetration testing. First, so for software security, so we have a set of sub-criteria, so including confidentiality, integrity, and others, right? And also, in order to ensure software security, so we have a SSA, which is software security assurance. So like other qualities, software quality, security must be ensured in all phases of software development, such as software design and software development and software testing. Okay. In fact, SSA is protecting the software against known vulnerabilities and against unintended and malicious actions. Then, so we talk about what is a vulnerability, right? Vulnerability is a weakness in the design, implementation, operation, or internal control of the system. So vulnerability is a characteristic of a system. So attackers may leverage the vulnerability to attack the system. Okay, that is a basic definition of vulnerability. Okay, then there are some list of vulnerabilities, right? We talk about the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. And for example, there are some vulnerabilities, top vulnerabilities, such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, right? So in your assignment for TP3, you may find similar vulnerabilities. Okay, then in order to find these vulnerabilities, so we have two approaches. First approach is to do a static analysis. A static analysis is basically to scan the code and find the patterns that match the patterns of the vulnerabilities. So it is good for identifying vulnerabilities in early stage of development. Okay, and there are a famous tool called SonarQube. Is if you run it on your local environment or on your company environment, so you can use a SonarQube. If you're running it in the cloud, if your code is in the cloud, for example, if your code is in GitHub, so you may use Sonar Cloud, right? So both software are are free for open source projects. Okay. Another strategy to find the vulnerabilities is software testing, security testing, right? And in particular, we talk about the penetration testing, so which is the most important way to test the security vulnerabilities of a system, right? So what is a penetration testing? So penetration testing is a simulated and authorized attack to reveal possible exploits and their severity due to vulnerabilities. So it's like a attack. It's like a hacker attack, but it's authorized. So we attack the system by ourselves, right? So when we compare the penetration test and a static analysis, so we know penetration test is after the deployment of the system, but static analysis is during the development, right? So penetration test must combine with the manual efforts. So you need to use manual efforts to visit your website along with your penetration test. You can find it in their assignment and also in the tutorials. The static analysis is mostly automatic, but with a risk of a false positive. You may have lots of false positives when you're doing static analysis, which means when you find when the static analysis tool reports a vulnerability, but in fact it is not a vulnerability, that is a false positive. penetration test can increase the certainty of the risks. If you find the risk in penetration test, usually it means this is a vulnerability. Static analysis, there are lots of false positive, but you can you are able to identify the risks in early stage, right, during your development. Then we have a tutorial also for penetration testing, right? So you can find the tutorial on Moodle. So this is a overview, a review of the last lecture. So today our topic is how to measure software quality assurance activities, specifically how to measure software testing. To start, so I want to motivate like who watches the watchman, right? The watchmen are watching people, but who watch a watchman? Similarly, who tests the tests, right? Who tests? So how to evaluate the effectiveness of our test cases, right? How can we measure test cases? This is what we are talking about today. So we name it SQA measurement, software quality assurance measurement, or the measurement of a software quality assurance. Specifically, we focus on testing, okay? So how to measure how to measure test cases? So you may think, anyway, can you think about any way that can measure the effectiveness or quality of test cases? Can anyone tell me anything about your idea, any idea to measure test cases? Anyway, you can raise your hands or you can post it on room chat or Slack, okay? Think about it. Okay, the basic way, the simple way is to measure the size, right? Measure the complexity matrix of test code, right? So when we measure code, we have a length of code. We have a like McCabe complexity measures, right? So we can use such measures to measure test cases because test cases are also code, right? These are simple measures. Other measures specifically for test, right? Do you remember in TP1 when we do run the test cases, right? So in the assignment, they ask you to report the test coverage, right? So test coverage is a way to measure test cases. Okay. So if your test cases can cover 80% of the branches, it is better than another test cases who can measure only 20% of the branches, right? So that's a measurement of test cases. Test coverage. Another way is a mutation testing. So we will also cover in this lecture. Okay. Previously, we in the software testing lecture, we talk about the test cases. Today, we talk about test coverage. Today, we will go to more detail and we'll go to more aspects of the test coverage. Okay. Then we'll talk about the mutation testing. So references here. Okay. So first, let's discuss test coverage. Okay. I just want to